Hoo-hoo. Hoo-hoo. Thunderhead Pictures, you are caught in the storm. Hey, everybody. Sorry about the delay, but my computer decided to disconnect from the internet before the show. So, sorry about being a couple minutes late there. Okay, I got my two books here, and the link to these books are on the database website of mine. It's thuhep dot. Oh no, let me do that again. thuhep dot. Let me write it down on the chat. Have to I check my computer just speeds up. These books links are on the book list under my name. Man, here that should do it. If I didn't spell that right. Thunderhead Pictures. Yeah. Okay, we are reading The Colors of Space by Marilyn Zimmer Bradley. Last week on the show. Bart, listen to me, the stranger whispered in a harsh, fast voice. Go along with this, or we're both dead. See those two Larry watching us? Call me dead, good and loud, if you want to live, because believe me, your life is in danger right now. Chapter 2. For a moment, pulled off balance in the fat stranger's hug, Bart remained perfectly still, while the man repeated in that loud, jovial voice, How you're grown! He let him go, stepping away a pace or two, and whispered urgently, Say something, and take that stupid look off your face. As he stepped back, Bart saw his eyes. In the chubby, good-natured red face, the stranger's eyes were half mad with fear. In a split second, Bart remembered the two Larry and their talk of a fugitive. In that moment, Bart Steele grew up. He stepped toward the man and took him quickly by the shoulders. Dad, you are sure surprised me, he said, trying to keep his voice from shaking. Been such a long time, I have forgotten what you looked like. Have a good trip? About like always. Fat man was breathing hard, but his voice sounded firm and cheerful. Can't compare with their trip on the old Asturian, though. The Asturian was the flagship of Vega Interplanet, Robert Steele's own ship. How's everything? Beads of sweat were standing out on the man's ruddy forehead, and his grip on Bart's wrist was so hard it hurt. Bart, grasping at random for something to say, gambled, Too bad you couldn't get to my graduation. I made the third in my class of 400. The lorry had surrounded them and were closing in. The fat man took a deep breath or two, said, Just a minute, son, and turned around. You want something? The tallest of the lorry, the one whom Bart had seen on the escalator, looked long and hard at him. When they spoke universal, their voices were sibilant, but not nearly so inhuman. Could we trouble you to show your papers? Certainly, none. Chandler the fat man dug them out and handed them over. Bart saw his father's name printed across the top. Laurie gestured to the Mantorian interpreter. What color is this man's hair? The Mentorian said in the Lari language, his hair is gray. He used the universal word. There were, of course, no words for colors in the Lari speech. The man we seek has hair of red, said the Lari, and he is tall, not fat. The boy is tall and with red hair. The Matorium volunteered. The old Larry made the gesture of disdain. This boy is 20 years younger than the men whose description came to us. Why did they not give us a picture, or at least a name? He turned to the other Larry and said in their own shrill speech, I suspect this man because he was alone, and I had seen this boy on the upper mezzanine and spoken with him. We watched him, knowing sooner or later the father would seek him, ask him. He gestured, and the Mentorian said, Who is this man, you? Bart gulped. For the first time, he noted the energon ray shockers at the belts of the Forlari. He'd heard about those. They could stun or they could kill, and quite horribly. He said, This is my father. You want my cards too? He hauled out his identity papers. My name's Bart Steele. And Larry, with a gesture of disgust, handed them back. Go then, father and son, he said not unkindly. Let's get going, son, said the little bald man. His hand shook on Bart's, and Bart thought, if we're lucky, we can get out of the port before he faints dead away. He said, I'll get a copter, and then, feeling sorry for the stranger, gave him his arm to lean on. He didn't know whether he was worried or scared. Where was his father? Why did this man have his dad's papers? Was his father hiding inside the Lhari ship? He wanted to run, to burst away from the impostor, but the guy was shaking so hard Bart couldn't just leave him standing there. If the Lhari got him, he was a dead duck. A captor swooped down, the pilot signaling the man. The little man said hoarsely, "No robot cat." Bart waved the copter away, getting a dirty look from the pilot, and pushed a button at the stand for one of the unmanned robocabs. It swung down, hovered motionless. Bart boosted the fat man inside. The man collapsed on the seat, leaning back, puffing, his hand pressed hard to his chest. Punch a combo for Denver, he said harshly. Bert obeyed automatically. Then he turned on the man. It's your game, mister. Now tell me what's going on. Where's my father? The man's eyes were half shut. He said, gasping, Don't ask me any questions for a minute. He thumbed a tablet into his mouth, and presently his breathing quieted. We're safe for now, for a minute. Those Larry would have cut us down. You, you maybe I haven't done anything. Look, you, Bart said, in a sudden rage. You owe me some explanations. For all I know, you're a criminal. You're a criminal, and the Lhari have every right to chase you. Why have you got my father's papers? Did you steal them to get away from the Lhari? Where's my father? It's your father. They were looking for you, young fool, said the man, gasping hard. Luckily, they had only a description and not a name, but they've probably got that by now uncoded. We've only confused them for a little while, but if you hadn't played along, they'd have had you watched, and when they get hold of the name Steel, they will sooner or later. The people in Procyon system. Where's is my father? I hope I don't know, the fat man said. If he's still where I left him, he's dead. My name is Briscoe, Emmon Briscoe. Your father saved my life years ago. Never mind how. The less you know, the safer you'll be for a while. His major worry just now is about you. He was afraid if he didn't turn up here, you'd take the first ship back to Vega. So he gave me his papers and sent me to warn you. Bart shook his head. It's all sound phony as can be. How do I know whether to believe you or not? His hand hovered over the robot cab controls. We're going straight to the police. If you're okay, they won't turn you over to the Lhari. If you're not, you young fool, said the fat man with a feeble violence. There's no time for all that. Ask me questions. I can prove I know your father. What was my mother's name? What was my mother's name? Oh, God, Briscoe said. I never saw her. I knew your father long before you were born. Until he told me, I never knew he'd married or had a son. I never have known you except that you're the living image. He shook his head helplessly and his breathing sounded hoarse. Bart, I'm a sick man. I'm going to die. I want to do what I came here to do because your father saved my life once when I was young and healthy and gave me 20 good years before I got old and fat and sick. Win or lose, I won't live to see you hunted down like a dog like my own son. Don't talk like that, Bart said, a creepy feeling coming over him. If you're sick, let me take you to a doctor. Briscoe did not even hear. Wait, there's something else Your father said. Tell Bart I've gone looking for the eighth color. Bart will know what I mean. That's crazy. I don't know. He broke off, for the memory had come full blown. He was very young, 5, 6, 7. His mother, tall and slender and very fair, was bending over a blueprint, pointing with a delicate finger at something straightening, saying in her light musical voice, "The fuel catalyst is a strange color, a color you never saw anywhere. Can you think of a color that isn't red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, indigo, or some combination of them? It isn't any of the colors of the spectrum at all. The fuel is a real eighth color." And his father had used the phrase, almost adopted it. When, when we know what the eighth color is, we'll have the secret of the star drive too. Briscoe saw his face change, nodded weakly. I see it means something to you. Now, will you do as I tell you? Within a couple of hours, they'll be combing the planet for you. But by that time, the ship I came in on will have taken off again. They only stop a short time here for mail passengers, no cargo. They may get underway again before all messages are cleared and decoded. He stopped and breathed hard. The Earth's authorities might protect you, but you will never be able to board a Lhari ship again, and that would mean staying on Earth for the rest of your life. You've got to get away before they start comparing notes. Here! His hand went into his pockets. For your hair, it's a dye, a spray. He pressed a button on the bulb in his hand. Bart gasped, feeling cold wetness on his head. His own hand came away stained black. Keep still, Briscoe said irritably. You need it at the Procyon end of the run. Here. He stuck some papers into Bart's hand, then punched some buttons on the robot cab's control. It wheeled and swerved so rapidly that Bart fell against the fat man's shoulder. Are you crazy? What are you going to do? Briscoe looked straight into Bart's eyes, and his hoarse, sick voice, and he said, "And Bart, don't worry about me. It's all over for me. Whatever happens, just remember this: what your father is doing is worth doing. And if you start stalling, arguing, demanding explanations, you can follow up 100 people and kill about half of them." He closed Bart's fingers roughly over the papers. The robot's cab hovered over the spaceport. Now listen to me very carefully. When I stop the cab down below, jump out. Don't stop to say goodbye or ask questions or anything else. Just get out, walk straight through the passenger door and straight up the ramp of the ship. Show them that ticket and get on. Whatever happens, don't let anything stop you. Bart. Briscoe shook his shoulder. Promise, whatever happens, you'll get on that ship. Bart swallowed, feeling as oops, feeling as if he'd been shoved into a silly cops and rubbers game. But Briscoe urgently had convinced him. Where where am I going? Oh, I have is a name. Raynar 3, Briscoe said, and the message about the eighth color. That's all I know. His mouth twisted again in that painful gasp. The cab swooped down. Bart found his voice. But what then? Is Dad there? Will I know? I don't know any more than I've told you, Briscoe said abruptly. The robot cab came to a halt, swaying a little. Briscoe jerked the door open, gave Bart a push, and Bart found himself stumbling out on the ramp beside the spaceport building. He caught his balance, looked around, and realized that the robot cab was already climbing the sky again. Immediately before him, neon letters spelled, "To passengers, entrance only. Bart stumbled forward. The Larry by the gate thrust out a disinterested claw. Bart held up what Briscoe had shoved into his hand, only now seeing that it was a thin wallet, a set of identity papers, and a strip of pink tickets. Procyon Alpha, Corridor B, straight through. The lorry gestures, and Bart went through the narrow passageway, came out at the other end, and found himself at the very base of a curving stair that led up and up toward a door in the side of the huge lorry ship. Bart hesitated. In another minute, he'd be on his way to a strange sun and a strange world on what might well be the wild goose chase of all time. Passengers were crowding the steps behind him. Someone shouted suddenly, "Look at that!" And someone else yelled, "Is that guy crazy?" Bart looked up. A robot robot cab was swooping over the spaceport in a wild, crazy circles, dipping down, suddenly making a dart like an enraged wasp at a little nest of larvae. They ducked and scattered. The robot cab swerved away, hovered, stripped back. This time it struck one of the larvae grazingly with landing gear and knocked him sprawling. Bart stood with his mouth open as if paralyzed. Briscoe, what was he doing? The fallen Larry, without moving, the robo, robot cab moved in again, as if for the kill, buzzing viciously overhead. Then a beam of light arched from one of the drawn energon tubes. The robot cab glowed briefly red, then seemed to sink together, then puddle a slag heap of molten metal on the glassy floor of the port. A little moan of horror came from the crowd, and Bart felt a sudden wrenching sickness. It had been like a game, a silly game of cops and robbers, and suddenly it was as serious as melted death lying there on the spaceport. Briscoe! Someone shoved him and said, "Come on! Quit, quit gawking, kid! They won't hold the ship all day just because some nut finds a new way to commit suicide." Bart, his legs numb, walked up the ramp. Briscoe had died to give him this chance. Now it was up to him to make it worth having. I see. Grant Meal Wish is on today. Thanks for joining the show again. Let's see. That was the finish of chapter 2 of this book. Does anybody want me to read the third chapter? Say it in the comments on the chat. I mean, on the side here. I think it's this side. Unless it be on the other side. I don't know. I'm looking at it differently. La dee, la da da. We will rock you. Going through the ride you. Going through the curves, even upside down. Dropping my chains all over the ground. With a riding in the back. Fly down the track. I need the doctor to do it. Just my back. We will ride you. Yay! Okay. Now we have to get back to the second chapter of The Colors of Space by Marilyn Zimmer Bradley. Chapter 3. At the top of the ramp, Ilari glanced briefly at his papers, motioned him through. Bart passed through the airlock and into a brightly lit corridor, half full pass- of passengers. The line was moving slowly, and for the first time Bart had a chance to think. He had never seen violent death before. In this civilized world, you didn't. He knew if he thought about Briscoe, he'd start bawling like a baby, so he swallowed hard a couple of times, set his chin, and concentrate on the trip to Procyon Alpha. That meant this ship was outborne on the Alburon run. Proximia, Saturi, Sirius, Pollux, Procyon, Capella, and Alabaron. The line of passengers was disappearing through a doorway. A woman ahead of Bart turned and said nervously, "We won't be put into cold sleep right away, will we?" He reassured her, remembering his inbound trip 5 years ago. "No, no, the ship won't go into warp drive until we're well past Pluto. It will be several days at least." Beyond the doorway, the lights dwindle, and a Mentorian interpreter took his dark glasses, saying, "Kindly remove your belt, shoes, and other accessories of leather or metal before stepping into the decontamination chamber. They will be separately decontaminated and returned to you. Papers, please." With a small twinge of fright, Bart surrounded them. Would the Mentorian ask why he was carrying two wallets inside the other one? He still had his Academy ID, which identified him as Bart Steele, and if the Mentorian looked through them to check and found out he was carrying two sets of identity papers. But the Mentorian merely dumped all his pockets paraphernalia without looking at it into a sack. Just step through here." Holding up his trousers with both hands, Bart stepped inside the indicated cubicle. It was filled with faint blush light. Bart felt a strong tingling and a faint electrical smell, and along his forearms there was a slight prickling where the small hairs were all standing on end. He knew that the invisible R rays were killing all the microorganisms in his body so that no disease germ or stray fungus would be carried from planet to planet. The blush light died outside. The Mentorian gave him back his shoes and belt, handed him the paper sack of his belongings and the paper cup full of greenish fluid. "Drink this." "What is it?" The, the medic said patiently. "Remember, the R rays killed all the microorganisms in your body, including the good ones. The antibodies that protect you against disease, and the small yeast and bacteria that live in your intestines and help in the digestion of your food. So we have to replace those you need to stay healthy. See?" The green stuff tasted a little brackish, but Bart got it down. All right, he didn't much like the idea of drinking a solution of germs, but he knew that was silly. There was a big difference between disease germs and healthful bacteria. Another Mentorian official, this one a young woman, gave him a key with a number tag and a small booklet with "Welcome aboard" printed on the cover. The tag was number 246B, which made Bart raise his eyebrows. B class was normally too expensive for Bart's father's modest purse. It wasn't quite the luxury class A reserved for planetary governors and ambassadors, but it was plenty luxurious. Briscoe had certainly sent him traveling in style. B deck was a long corridor with oval doors. Bart found one numbered 246, and not surprisingly, the key opened it. It was a pleasant little cabin measuring at least 6 feet by 8, and he would eventually have it to himself. There was a comfortably big bunk, a light that could be turned on and off instead of the permanent glow walls of the cheaper class, a private shower, um, and toilet, and a place card on the walls informing him that passengers in the B class had the freedom of the uh, observation dome and the recreation lounge. There was even a row of buttons dispensing synthetic foods in case the passenger preferred privacy or didn't want to wait for their meals in the dining hall. A bzzz, a buzzer sounded, and a Mentorian voice announced, 5 minutes to room check. Passengers will please remove all metals in their clothing and deposit in the lead drawers. Passengers will please recline in their bunks and fasten the restraining straps before the steward arrives. Repeat, passengers will please. Bart took off his belt, stuck it and his cufflinks in the drawer and lay down. Then, in a sudden panic, he got up again. His passengers, as Bart still were still in the sack, he got them out, and with a feeling as if he were crossing a bridge and burning it after him, tore up very scrap of paper that identified him as Bart Steele of Vega 4, graduate of the Space Academy of Earth. Now, for better or worse, he was. Who was he? He hadn't even looked at the new papers Briscoe had given him. He glanced through them quickly. They were made out to David Warren Briscoe of Elebaran 4. According to them, David Briscoe was 20 years old, hair black, eyes hazel, height 6 foot 1 inch. Bart wondered painfully if Briscoe had a son and if David Briscoe knew where his father was. There was also a license validated with 4 runs on the Elebaran Inter-Satellite Cargo Company planetary ships, with the rank of apprentice astrogator and a considerable sum of money. Bart put the papers in his pocket, Penn's pocket, and the torn up scraps of his old ones into the trash bin before he realized that they looked exactly like what they were torn up legal identity papers and broken plastic card. Nobody destroys identity papers for any good reason. What could he do? Then he remembered something from the academy. Starships were closed system cycles. No waste was discarded, but everything was collected in big chemical tanks, broken down to separate elements, purified, and built up again into new materials. He threw the papers in the toilet, worked the plastic card back and forth until he was wrenched it into inch wide bits and threw it after them. The cabin door opened, and the matron said interminably, "Please lie down and fasten your straps. I haven't all day." Hastily, Bart flushed the toilet and went to the bunk. Now, everything that could identify him as Bart Steele was on its way to the breakdown tanks. Before long, the complex hydrocarbons and cellulose would all be innocent little molecules of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. They might turn up in new combinations as sugar on the table. The Mentorian grumbled, "You young people think the rules mean everybody but you." And strapped him far too tightly into the bunk. Bart felt resentful just because Mentorians could work on Lhari ships. Did they have to act as if they owned everybody? When the men had gone, Bart drew a deep breath. Was he really doing the right thing? If he refused to get out of the robot cab, if he'd driven Briscoe straight to the police, then maybe Briscoe would still be alive, and now it was too late. A warning siren went off, and the ship, rising to hysterical intensity. Bart thought incredulously, this is really happening. It felt like a nightmare. His father, a fugitive from the Lhari, Briscoe dead, he himself traveling with forged papers to a star he'd never seen. He braced himself, knowing the siren was the last warning before takeoff. First, there would be the hum of great turbines deep in the ship, then the crushing surge of acceleration. He had made a dozen trips inside the solar system, but no matter how often he did it, there was the strange excitement, the little pinpoint of fear, like an exotic taste that was almost pleasant. The door opened, and Bart grabbed a fishful of bad tinkle, tick, ticking as two Lhari came into the room. One of them said in their strange, shrill speech, "This boy is the right age." Bart froze. "You're seeing spice in every corner, Ransell," said the other, then in universal. "Could we trouble you for your papers, sir?" Bart, strapped down and helpless, moved his head towards the drawer, hoping his face did not betray his fear. He watched the two Lhari rifle through his papers with their odd pointed claws. "What is your planet?" Bart bit his lip hard. He had almost said Vega 4. Alabara, Alabaran 4, the Lhari said in his own language. "We should have Margil in here. He actually saw them," the other replied. "But I saw the machine that disintegrated. I still say there was enough protoplasm residue for two bodies." Bart fought to keep his face perfectly straight. "Did anybody come into your cabin?" the Lhari asked in Universal. "Only the steward. Why? Is something wrong?" "There is some thought that a stowaway might be on board. Of course, of course, we could not allow that. Anyone not properly protected would die in the first shift into warp drive." "Just the steward," Bert said again. "A Mentorian." The Lhari said, eyeing him keenly. "You are ill? Or discombobulated?" Bart grasped at random for an excuse. That that stuff the medic made me drink made me feel sort of sick." "You may send for a medical officer after acceleration," said the Lhari expressively. The summoning bell is at your left. They turned and went out, and Bart gulped. Laurie in person checking the passenger decks. Normally, you never saw one on board Dressmatorians. The Laurie treated humans as if they were too dumb to bother about. Well, at least for once, someone was acting as if humans were worthy antagonists. We'll show them someday. But he felt very alone and scared. A low hum rose somewhere in the ship, and Bart grabbed, take, taking as he felt the slow surge. Then a violent sense of pressure popped his eardrums. Weight crowded down on him like an elephant sitting on his chest, and there was a horrible squashing sensation dragging his limbs of the out of shape. It grew and grew. Bart lay still and sweated, trying to ease his uncomfortable position, unable to move so much as a finger. The lorry ships hit 12 gravities in the first surge of acceleration. Bart felt as if he were spreading out under the weight into a puddle of flesh, melted flesh like bristles. But withered and bit his lip till he could taste blood, wishing he were young enough to bawl out loud. Abruptly it eased, and the blood started to flow again in his numbed fingers limbs. Not fingers, limbs. Bart loosened his straps, took a deep breath, wiped his face, wringing wet. Whether with sweat or tears he wasn't sure, and sat up in his bunk. The loudspeaker announced, "Acceleration 1 is complete. Passengers on A deck, um, on A and B decks are invited to witness the passing of satellites from Aspersa- um, Appreciation Lounge in half an hour." Bart got up and washed his face, remembering that he had no luggage with him, not so much as a toothbrush. At the back of his mind, packed up in a corner, was the continuing worry about his father, the horror of Briscoe's ghastly death, the fear of the lorry. But he slammed the lid firmly on them all. For the moment, he was safe. They might be looking for Bart Steele by now, but they weren't looking for David Briscoe of Ellerborough. He might just as well relax and enjoy the trip. He went down to the observation lounge. It had been darkened, and one whole wall of the room was uh, made of clear quartzite. Bart drew a deep breath as the vast panorama of space opened out before him. They were receding from the sun at some thousands of miles a minute, strolling past the ship, gleaming in a reflected sun like iron fillings, moving to the motion of a magnet, where the waves upon waves of cosmic dust, tiny free electrons, ions, particle of gas, free of the heavier atmosphere themselves, invisible, they formed in their brilliant billions into bright colors around the ship, pale swirling veils of mist, and through their dim shine the brilliant flares of the fixed stars burned clear and steady, so far away that even the hurling motion of the ship could not change their positions. One by one he picked out the constellations. Elebaron swung on the pendant chain of Taurus like a giant ruby. Orion strode across the sky, a swirling nebula at his belt. Vega burned cobalt blue in the heart of the lyre. Colors, colors inside the atmosphere of Earth's night, the stars had been pale white sparks against black. Here, against a misty pale swirls of cosmic dust, they burned with color heaped on color, the bloody burning crimson of Ataris, the metallic gold of Capella, the sullen pulsing of Batanges. They burn each with its own inward flame, and light like handfuls of burning jewels flung by some giant hand upon the swirling darkness. It was a sight Bart felt he could watch forever and still be hungry to see the never changing, ever changing colors of space. Whew. I'm getting there. Whew. And about the British accent, I have trouble doing accents, but I will try to do it on some of the parts. Behind him in the darkness, after a long time, someone. Oh, thank you for coming on the third person that showed up. Behind him in the darkness, after a long time, someone said softly, "Imagine being Ilari and not being able to see anything out there but bright or brighter light." A bell rang. Bing! Melodiously in the ship, and the passengers in the lounge began to stir and move toward the door to stretch limbs cramped like Bart's by Trace watching to talk quickly of ordinary things. "I suppose that bell means dinner," said a vaguely familiar voice at Bart's elbow. "Synthetics, I suppose, but at least we can get all get acquainted." The light from the undarkened hall fell on their faces as they moved towards the door. "Bart! Why, it can't be!" In utter dismay, Bart looked down into the face of Tommy Kedron. In the rush of danger, he had absolutely forgotten that Tommy Kedron was on this ship. To make his alias useless, Tommy was looking at him in surprise and delight. "Why didn't you What didn't you tell me? Or did you and your father decided at the last minute? Hey, it's great that we can go part way together at least." Bart knew he must cut this short very quickly. He stepped out into the full corridor light so that Tommy could see his black hair. "I'm sorry. You're confusing me with someone else." "Bart, come on off it." Tommy's voice died out. "Sorry. I'd have sworn you were a friend of mine." Bart wondered suddenly had he done the wrong thing. He had a feeling that he might need a friend badly. Well, it was too late now. He stared Tommy in the eye and said, "I've never seen you before in my life." Man, I can't even change my voice anymore. Tommy looked deflated. He stepped back slightly, shaking his head. "Never saw such a resemblance. Are you vegan?" "No," Mart lied flatly. "Aldebaran, David Briscoe." "Glad to know you, Dave." With undiscouragable friendly, Tommy stuck out a hand. "Say, that bell means dinner. Why don't we go down together? I don't know a soul on the ship, and it looks like luck running into a fellow who could be my best friend's twin brother." Bart felt warmed and drawn, but subsequently he knew he could not keep up the pretense. Sooner or later he'd give himself away, use some habitual phrase or gesture Tommy would recognize. Should he take a chance, reveal himself to Tommy, and ask him to keep quiet? No, this wasn't a game. One man was already dead. He didn't want Tommy to be next. There was only one way out. He said coldly, "Thank you, but I have other things to attend to. I tend to be very busy all through the voyage." He spun on his heel and walked away before he could see Tommy's eager, friendly smile turn hurt and defensive. Back in his cabin, he gloomy dialed some synthetic jellies, thinking with annoyance of the expectation good food of the dining room. He knew he couldn't risk meeting Tommy again, and daily resigned himself to staying in his cabin. It looked like an awful boring trip ahead. It was week before the Lari ship went into warp drive, and all that time Bart stayed in his cabin, not daring to go to the observation lounge or dining hall. But he got tired of eating synthetics. Oh, they were nourishing enough, but they were altogether uninteresting. And tired of listening to the tapes the room steward got him from the ship's library. By the time they had been in space a week, he was so bored with his own company that even the Matari medic was a welcome sight when he came in to prepare him for cold sleep. Bart had the best education on Earth, but he didn't know precisely how the Larry warp drive worked. He'd been told that only a few of the Larry understood it, just as the men who flew a copter didn't need to understand Newton's three laws of motion in order to get himself back and forth to work. But he knew this much: when the ship generated the frequencies which accelerated it beyond the speed of light, in effect, the ship went into a sort of fourth dimension and came out of it good many light years away. As far as Bart knew, no human being had ever survived warp drive except in the suspended animation which they called cold sleep. While the medic was professionally reassuring him and strapping him in his bunk, Bart wondered what humans would do with the Lari Star Drive if they had it. Well, he supposed they could use automation in their ships. The Matarian paused, needle in hand. Do you wish to be wakened for the week we shall spend in each of the Proximia, Sirius, and Pollux systems, sir? You can, of course, be given enough drug to keep you in cold sleep until we reach the Procyon system. Bart wondered if the room steward had uh, mentioned the passengers so bored with the trip that he didn't even visit the observation lounge. He felt tempted. He was getting awfully tired of staring at the walls. On the other hand, he wanted very much to see the other star systems. When he passed through them on the trip to Earth, he'd been too young to pay much attention. Firmly, he put the temptation aside. Better not to risk meeting other passengers, Tommy especially, if he decided he couldn't take the boredom. The needle went into his arm. He felt himself sinking into sleep, and in sudden panic, he realized that he was helpless. The ship would touch down on three worlds, and on any of them, the Larry might have his description or his alias. He could wake up. He could be taken off, drugged, and unconscious, and might never wake up. He tried tell them he was changing his mind, but already he was unable to speak. There was a freezing moment of intense, painful cold. Then he was floating in what felt like waves of cosmic dust, swirling many colored before his eyes. And then there was nothing, no color, nothing at all, except another night of sleep. That was The Colors of Space by Marilyn Zimmer Bradley. I'm gonna look through my story in space and see if the second chapter is not that long. Yeah, boy, it is. Maybe I would just give you the first paragraph in chapter 2 of my story in space. Or the first page here of the second chapter. After I got done looking outside, I made my way to the kitchen to get something to eat for breakfast. But I was staring to get low on supplies since nobody is working on the farms. I work I work in the library, keep all our records on all our computers and keep them working. There are people in there that remember that we used to have books that we used to use. They're all in the basement now, somewhere in this building. Well, I will tell you more about the library later. The kitchen I was walking to has a size of 12 by 12 feet square. I'm still wearing my two-piece blue pajamas. They have peanuts on them because they don't know how put anything else on them. The kitchen was a stove, a refrigerator, a table, and a sink. I went back to my room to change. My room size is the same as the kitchen, but it has a bed and a dresser. When I got a pair of jeans and a shirt on, I walk to my living room so I can use the front door. Power has been weak lately, but I still have go to work. Have to go to work. When I walk out of my front door, I saw cars flying overhead, and in front of me is a building and a road. We generate we generate electric by solar and wind. Our generators are more vents, so it generates more power. I walk north. We do have mountains, but they are around the shoreline to keep the water from flooding. I pass the store on my right and gun store on my left, and I keep walking to the library. It will be the next building. When I get to the library front steps, I look at it and I see glass doors and windows. So I walk through them and walk in the library that was that has a front desk in the center of the room. A guy walked by me and said, "Come down to the basement with me. I have something to show you." So I went with him. He walked down a massive flight of stairs, and he came up, and we come to a big titanium door. He opens it and told me to walk through, and I said to him, "What do you want to show me?" And he said, "Our planet is into trouble. If we don't get money soon or ships, our planet will soon die. So we have to learn our history to save our future." This man looks like to be around 6 feet and 11 inches tall. He was wearing a black cowboy hat, a blue jacket, and blue jeans. This wayward looking man seemed to be of an old age, of around 60 years old. I am I'm I'm am stocky, but I'm trying to get fit. My face has no freckles. I have blue eyes and brown hair. I also have hair over my body. My hands are small. Now you know what I look like and what the man looks like. We will move on. I followed the man as he led me in the room with lots of old books. The books were stacked on top of each other 10 feet high. Over in the corner, there were maps, lots of them. There is a table in the center of the room with a book on it. The title says The History of Planet Peanut. Now we got here. How we got here? The wayward looking man told me, "Sit down here and read this." So I did what he said, since he is my elder, and we are a Christian nation that are born again. I sat down in the chair that is made of wood and started to read the book, and this is what it says. A long time ago, on a planet called Earth, in the year 2121, the year of our Lord, the people of Earth had a gate program up and running a long time and build lot of ships. It was decided that everyone should have the right to know since they have way to defend themselves, and they decided to colonize other planets. Since we Christians were not welcome anymore, we left on one of the ships to colonize another planet. We arrived on this planet and we named it Peanut, and it was the same size as Earth, and everything we started the year with a 1, so our years will be different as Earth. When we arrive on this planet, we made a gate so we can contact Earth to get more supplies to get started to build stuff with. And then it told me of the War of 1812 and found out the records that have the gate address to Earth was burned up, and we have no way to get supplies to build more ships. But we did start up mines to build our own ships before the war, but they got destroyed during the war. I looked up and saw the elderly gentleman took a map and gave it to me and said, "Take this, but don't look at it until tomorrow. The map will only show the direction if you wait." Like I said, must go now. Bye. Before I got here is a device that will tell where you are and time and name of the planet. Now go and help us out. I laughed and I went home to get some sleep, but I still wonder what is so special about this map. May 1st, 2015, evening. Location, home, bedroom. After I put my pajamas on, I lied down on my bed and quietly fell asleep. I never woke until the next day. When I was sleeping, I had a dream, and here it is. The dream starts out that I was swimming in space and I came upon a planet, and it looked like I know it from somewhere. I landed on the planet, and a girl came to me and said, "I am going to be your wife someday." I asked her, "Who are you?" She replies, "You will find out someday." And she giggles at me. Then I woke up and I looked at the device that wayward looking man gave me. May 2nd, 2015, morning. Location, home, bedroom. I woke up and got ready for the adventure of a lifetime. But first, I had to find where I had to go. So I checked the map and it said updating. It took a long time updating, but then a flash of light came out of it and showed pictures and directions that said go to the gate and hold the map up to it. So I did what it told me to do, and suddenly the gate doorway started to whirl and turn. Suddenly, to my surprise, the gate entrance was open, so I went through the gate, not knowing if I was going to live or die. I exited the gate through the other side, not knowing where I was. I looked at the map once again, and it read updating once again. The map had to be old because it seemed like it was going to take a while to update. I then looked for a place to sit down and wait. Suddenly, the map beep and said it's good to be on the planet. It also told me to wait until tomorrow to get the name of the planet and our next location. I'd heard this said to me before by the elderly man. The ground is all green and trees off in the distance, so I then went off to find some shelter to get some sleep. I found a fort not too far away from the gate, like 5 feet away. As I went in, I found a place that seemed to be a mossy mound of grass to lie down on, and I fell asleep and took a long nap. When I was sleeping, I was thinking about things like, is there any bugs on the mossy ground I'm lying on? Because it'd be so hard to find medicine in this part of the universe. wherever we are. I was also thinking where I was going to find some water because I forgot to pick some up when I left. Peanut, oh well. Left Peanut, oh well. I guess I will find out tomorrow about where I am and stuff like that. I thought there was someone out there, but I was so tired I just fell asleep. What was that? I said. Who's there? I'm armed. I was armed with cheese instead of a gun. This is weird. I swore there was a gun in my pocket, not cheese. This was strange, very strange. Then I remembered this was only a dream and wondered how I managed to dream even though I just went to I just want to take a nap. Planet unknown. Location fourth entrance. Day unknown. I woke up from my nap 3 hours later. Now the device gave me the time, but not the day. It says 7 a.m. I took the map out of my pocket and noticed what looked like a human handprint on one of the corners of the map. Puzzled, must be someone tried to take the map while I was sleeping, but that's not important. As I chuckled while looking at the writing on the map, I couldn't help but notice the name that was given to this planet. The device says planet, stars, location, fourth entrance, day, May 3rd, 2015, early mornings. Stars, that's a funny name for a planet. But there was no time to waste laughing about it. The map told me something else about the planet. It used to be a real star, but someone turned into a planet. I just don't believe it. The map is telling a lie. I'm still sleepy when I decided to take a walk and try to get some food. I don't know where I'm going to find some till the map beeped. I looked at it and behold, found out there is some woods nearby. I went to the woods and I had to find the tree branch so I can start making the trap. Day, May 3rd, 2015, noon. Few hours have passed and I finally got the trap set. So I went a few feet away from the trap so the animal can get in the trap. I had to sit down because I'm still tired now. I can figure it out, figure about who tried to grab the map. And then I heard something rustling in the bushes, so I stood up and grabbed my gun and told whatever is out there, who goes there? I have a gun. This time I do have a gun instead of cheese. And someone comes out of the bushes and behold, it's a young girl that was following me. I put my gun away and she came to me and said, "You caught something in your trap." So I went with her to my trap, and behold, there is something in my trap. It was a nice rabbit. So I cleaned it, and then I went to get some wood for a fire. So stared to get some sticks. Hey, I thought it said started supposed to be. A few more hours later, I finally got enough wood to start a good fire. She gave some water to drink and gave me a container with water for the rest of my journey. I told the young girl to sit down and told her that I will give her some meat when I get it all cooked. She started to talk about her family and where she came from and want her planet what her planet was called, and she said, "My planet name is called Thunderhead because all the storms it has on it. We had to escape through the gate because it got really bad and my brother got injured, so we had to stay here. My name is Cat and I wanted to travel with you." I told her I have to speak to your parents first. Okay, come to the house we come to the house we built here. When the rabbit finally got done cooking, so I split it in half. I gave one half to the cat and the other half half. Ugh. I ate and I saved the guts for the bears, if there is any. When we got done eating, Kat took me to her home. Day, May 3rd, 2015. Night, location, Kat's house. When we finally made it to her home, it was dark. Her parents met me and told me how they arrived on the planet again, and they also told me to take them to Earth. I told them I can't because I don't know where I was able to find it. They agreed with me, and I told them about Peanut, and they said they know where it is, and they will go there in the morning. They told me there was a couch in the living room if I want to go to sleep, but I told him that I should get back to my mossy ground, so he took me to it. When we made it to the mossy ground, he said, "Good night." Then he left me, and the cat came out of nowhere and asked to stay with me for the night. So I told her, you can stay. It's too late to take you back now." She came close and cuddled next to me, and we both back to sleep. When I was dreaming, I dreamed I was swimming in space and everything before, but this time the girl said, "I'm I'm waiting for you." I wonder how and why she keeps showing up. Day, sorry about that. Day, May 4th, 2015, early morning. The map woke me up. I looked and I did not see Cat anywhere. I guess they left for Peanut already. The map told me to get around there somewhere I should go to see. So I started to wake myself up and looked at the map again, and it told me to go into the cave that was directly in front of me. I started to walk towards the cave and made it into the cave opening. Once inside, I found a painting with planets and gate addresses on it. I couldn't find the gate address for Earth Gate again, but I wrote the ones down from the cave. As I started to the leave the cave, something grabbed me. End of chapter 2. Next time on the live broadcast of Thunderhead Pictures, we're gonna read the third chapter next time. After we read the next chapter in The Colors of Space by Marilyn Zimmer Bradley. If you want the colors of My Story in Space, you can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Lulu.com is updating this webpage, and the Ingram Book Catalog Network. So thank you so much, everybody that joined, and thank you to Grant saying this is currently the best life series in America. Best part of my week. Will you autograph copies? Well, if I see the person in the person in that has my book, I would sign it, but I don't have a way to send people autograph copies normally because I would have to buy the copies. So maybe later I will find out. Okay, this has been Thunderhead Pictures. You've been caught in the storm. Bye, everybody. Bye, Grant. See you later. And bye, whoever the other person is, and bye that third person that laughed earlier. And thanks for the like. See ya.
You didn't know the other person's name.
Shh. Come on.